Good evening, Trump's family. Welcome back to my channel. Have a good night, everyone, and God bless you. Alright, without further ado, let's get into the news. Today on President's Day, bumbling Biden decided to ignore his own troubled citizens in Ohio by paying Zelensky a little visit in Ukraine. We're gonna see how the fawning legacy media is basically lying about the trip. And we're gonna see precisely why Biden only served to humiliate himself once again, on the world stage. Today, in a surprise visit to Ukraine as a show of support and solidarity with what the whole legacy media is calling the fully and totally democratic nation of Ukraine. News of the visit was kept tightly under wraps by the legacy media until Biden's arrival. Biden declared in an address that, quote, unchecked aggression is a threat to all of us. 1 year later, Kyiv stands and Ukraine stands, democracy stands. Americans stand with you and the world stands with you. Kia has captured a part of my heart, yeah, and obviously a bit of his bank account. Regardless, the legacy media poured out their elation for this cognitively vigorous president. That's, of course, what his recent medical sham of an exam just confirmed. Here's how the legacy media reported the trip today. CNN, the most distrusted name in fake news. They had a couple of headlines. Biden's trip to Kyiv delivers the starkest rebuke possible to Putin, or this one, Biden to Ukraine visit upstages Putin and leaves Moscow's military pundits raging. But nothing beats the other shameless propagandistic drivel of The Atlantic, which has just descended into the literally a cesspool of democratic talking points. Biden just destroyed Putin's last hope. The president's visit to Ukraine was a gut punch to the Russian leader. Yes, all supreme great leader, Commander-in-Chief Joseph Biden has great vigor and youthfulness, sound, mind and body. He is standing up to the Russian imperialists and demonstrating the superiority of North Korea. I mean, American resolve. Oh, my head, I mean, seriously, these people are beyond propaganda. I mean, I think even Kim Jong-un would tell his state-run media if they were printing articles like this. Yo, guys, I mean, come on, keep it real, you know, tone this down a bit. No one's gonna believe this stuff. I mean, the dirty little secret in all of this. In the not-so-secret is that these headlines, everyone knows these headlines are foolhardy. They're utter jokes. They're not true. Buttoned up stage, anyone? Nobody in the planet takes him seriously. Democrats don't even take them seriously. They want somebody else in 2024. Republicans. I was gonna say Republicans don't take them seriously. But obviously Lindsey Graham does, or I'm sure Liz Cheney does, but outside of that no Republican takes him seriously. And if you think President Xi or Vladimir Putin take Biden even remotely seriously. I've got some beachfront property in Arkansas, Josiah, for heaven's sakes. I think Jack Sobek said more or less rightly when he said the White House basically had to ask the Kremlin permission for Biden to even go to Kyiv in case Russian forces were planning on leveling Kyiv up today. Now the vast majority of the population sees a horrific contrast between the way this America's last president treats Ukraine and how he treats East Palestine, Ohio. As you know, on Friday, February 3rd, a train traveling from Madison, Illinois to Conway, Pennsylvania derailed in East Palestino, Ohio. Among the 50 train cars that derailed, multiple cars contain a particularly dangerous chemical, vinyl chloride, that was released into the atmosphere in the form of massive plumes of dark smoke that can be seen in eastern Ohio and western Pennsylvania. A number of other volatile industrial chemicals released at the derailment site as well. And the environmental impact was seen almost immediately. Residents began reporting hundreds of dead fish found belly up in Leslie Ron Stream, located East Palestine, which is just an hour northwest of the city of Pittsburgh. The town and surrounding areas have been absolutely devastated, what may indeed be the worst environmental disaster in our nation's history. But Biden has yet to come anywhere close to East Palestine. And of course, in contrast to the American last Biden, President Trump is reported on his way to Ohio as we speak, and a number of leaders have noticed the discrepancy here. Matt Gaetz tweeted out, when our border is in crisis, Joe Biden goes home to Nap and Delaware when Ohio burns with toxic chemicals. Biden's administrator says everything is fine. So on President's Day, I'm not surprised that Biden is ditching America for Ukraine. He ditched America's interests since the start of his presidency. You know they can keep him. Representative Andy Biggs of Arizona tweeted out, "You shouldn't be standing with these Palestinian American town in your own country that needs your help. And in the end, though, none of us would ever wish any harm. In the end, the way Biden is responding to his policy, or better, not responding, is precisely why scholars see liberalism dying right before our very eyes. The good news in all of this is that scholars are recognizing that Biden's America-last liberalism undermines the very culture of trust, compassion, and empathy that any viable political system requires to sustain itself. America-last policies are more broadly known as open border policies, where non-citizens are given equal or better treatment than citizens, has been shown to significantly and adversely affect trust in a nation's institutions. For example, in Sweden opened its borders to a massive flow of migrants back in 2015. They saw as a consequence of dramatic plunge in trust and confidence among their population, towards their social and governmental institutions. And of course, that's exactly what we're seeing here in the United States. Gallup has recently found that trust in our institutions, from federal government, to our legacy news media, to law enforcement, to our elections, is at an all-time low. And what's so fascinating that there are now studies that show that liberal policies such as open border policies, and preferential treatment for non-citizens in orderly contributes to that social distrust. It's very interesting because social trust tends to derive from familiarity, as well as a sense of fairness, whereas liberalism creates a more pluralistic and therefore unfamiliar society that appears to favor outsiders, in this case, Ukraine, over citizens, in this case of people, these Palestine. So the irony in all this is that Biden's ridiculous trip to Ukraine and the pathetically fawning coverage that it's gotten from the liberal media only served to ultimately undermine the very liberalism that these leftist ideologues are so enamored with, and that may be the most humiliating thing of all. And some significant news now show that to you, because we're going to have a concerted effort by the establishment Republicans, by Fox News, by the old guard GOP, and the business as usual. Want you know, people who want business as usual on the Republican side are going to be backing DeSantis. You're going to be getting a lot more positive coverage for DeSantis over President Trump. Folks, we can expect to hear a lot more positive things about DeSantis coming from the supposed rights, and more negative things coming about Trump in the coming year as he tried to derail his eventual winning of the primaries for the Republican Party. Just a few days ago, even Mitt Romney himself said that President Trump is the most likely Republican 2024 nominee. Failed presidential candidate Mitt Romney told reporters last week that former President Donald Trump will likely be the Republican nominee in 2024. And the potential wide field of candidates will only improve his chances. Quote, "I think President Trump is by far the most likely to become our nominee," he said in the Capitol. "If there's an alternative to that, it would be only realistic if it narrows." And that's what Ronnie said right after Nikki Haley threw her name in the hat. Now, we had this new Rasmussen poll also from a few days ago from likely Republican voters, and yes, President Trump is leading, but he's not leading relatively by as much when you compare the fact, or look at the fact, that Ron DeSantis is not even running. Now, he's doing a great job as governor. President Trump is the man that we need there. Let me remind you, Ron DeSantis was in D.C. What was it, 2012 he won, 2014 he won, 2016 he won re-election, 2014 and 16 in the House of Representatives. Did you ever hear of Ron DeSantis before President Trump endorsed him to be the governor running against him? But who they want to be Obama to, for the Florida gubernatorial race? No, he never heard of them. Because after 3 terms, yeah, I guess he was one of the founding members of the Freedom Caucus or whatever. But he wasn't doing much, he wasn't really a force to be reckoned with. Let me want to remind you that he's been in D.C., and there's really not much noteworthy. He did his 3 terms as a congressman from Florida. President Trump came out swinging and working for the American people, day one. Alright, you're not going to sway me. So please, folks, just be aware that on our side, there's going to be more pushing for DeSantis and moving away from President Trump. They're gonna give you Trump fatigue. Yeah, I don't like that Trump is having weird rants onto the social, but those things are insignificant. I just went through a litany of his list of accomplishments under all the animus, not even knowing what the hell he was doing his first term, his first 2 years. When he comes in the second time, he's going to be very, very effective. But according to this latest Rasmussen poll, and found that 45% of Republican respondents would support President Trump, 32% would support DeSantis, and 14% would support another candidate. So President Trump having less than half of the support. That, of course, is according to a poll, and President Trump has more Republican support than that. I would bet my bottom dollar on that. Also, a lot of people vote for Trump, like myself, who are not even registered as Republican. If you're new around here, I was a Republican for years when I was in California, because you're never going to get a conservative coming through the Democrat Party. But after they did not back President Trump at the end of 2020, I left the party in protests and have not returned. And then, yeah, we build NATO across the world. Yeah, it's such a great thing, NATO, of which Ukraine is not a member of. Then he's talking about Japan and what have you. I wanted to clarify, get some clarity on there. So I went over to see what was going on. I went over to United Nations, see what was similar to the NATO website. NATO has a number of partners across the globe or global partners, which alliance cooperates with on an individual basis. Afghanistan, Australia, Colombia, Iraq, Japan, the Republic of Korea, Mongolia, New Zealand and Pakistan. So he mentioned Japan. But NATO is not. Ukraine is not a member of NATO. And it's not even one of their global partners. Biden again, Kyiv today. Now someone in the comment section pointed this out, and I'm aware of it, it's Kyiv. But then it said, Keith, because there's some sort of political way of a politically correct way of saying it. I say Kev and Kyiv and Keith, and now because I hear Keep so much when I watch mainstream media, I sometimes say Keep and Kyiv. Please don't get your underwear in a bunk over it. That's all I have to say about that. Biden and Kev pledges $500 million more in military aid. Japan commits $5.5 billion. Well, man, these global partners that NATO has, man, they know who the suckers are, don't they? Bored, they knew the suckers are Joe Biden, United States. And now Japan is getting sucked into it. Joe Biden minute surprise. Visit to Kyiv. Japan announced a generous financial aid package, and a people's court put Russian President Vladimir Putin on trial for the crime of aggression Monday as a war with Ukraine or approach the one-year mark with no end in sight. Of course, is no end in sight. Why would there be an end in sight when you have Lindsey Graham, kill Biden, rhinos and neocons, and your lip saying we're going to support Ukraine for as long as it takes? Why would Ukraine want this conflict to end? It's money coming in. Obviously, Ukraine or Kyiv is fairly safe right now, as I showed it this morning. You got Joe Biden, and his bed buddy and his lover. President Zelensky just walking down the streets of Kyiv with air sirens buzzing on. Nothing to worry about here. It's all good. It's all safe here. As the money continues, why the heck would they want to cut off the teat of America that's feeding them money in the Western world, feeding them money? Incredible. Breitbart has a lot of information on what's going on today. How about this? The Biden administration announced nearly $500 million in additional aid for Ukraine, including $10 million for its energy infrastructure. Oh, for his energy infrastructure. Okay. No infrastructure. Don't worry about our infrastructure. We got trains derailing. We got power plants being shot. Oh folks, we got more stuff happening in Ohio. And we got some big things going on with Kevin McCarthy and Tucker Carlson. Thank you for watching the video. I wish you a good